Knowing this is key to how you're going to put together your plan for how you're going to find your job. So, you know, there's jargon there, it's a square, but it does make sense. And there's two segments, the internal and the external segment. So strengths and weaknesses. Weaknesses, I'm not worried about you filling in that list. If you're like me, you could probably put more of those down than we care about. It's the strengths that you need to focus on. What are some of your attributes, your selling points, and you can work with those. So they give some examples: a solid education, a strong network, any kind of positive personal strengths that you might have. We tend to discourage those, but a lot of organizations use something called working styles when they're talking about people how they're going to fit with the team. So they aren't necessarily looking that everybody's going to be high energy and all that much fun and all that great stuff, because that will drive some people who are really analytical, who are going to be the ones we rely on to say, let me give you my take on this situation. So you have to know what your personal traits are and then think about how they are positive. Opportunities and threats are things that are external, things that are going out in the world. If I was in the food business, for example, like Jim, I would be looking at opportunities mid-market, simply because there's 10,000 employees that will be working mid-market San Francisco that weren't working there a few years ago. So they got to eat during the day. So that's a great opportunity for somebody who's in the food business, because somehow they're going to have their food delivered. So knowing what's going on in that area is something to explore. The threat there, almost all of the tech companies coming in are building their own cafeterias. So if you're cooking, that's going to be more difficult, or opening a restaurant, because some of them may be eating inside, but still they all have to have food delivered. So what would be a threat for me if I was trying to run a food cart or open a restaurant would be they build them inside. But an opportunity for you is great, they build them inside, I don't care, they still have to have. I'll just give you an example of what I'm talking about, how this can work. This was me in a former life. So I was an actor, and I moved out here, and I wanted to join the Shakespeare Festival in the East Bay, because that was the only theater really hiring in the summer. So I had to do this for myself in one sense. Personal strength I was a character actor. It's easier to get hired if you're a character actor than to be the leading man or leading lady. There's just one of those in a play. There might be more character actors. I had studied dance and had great physical skills, so I knew that would be a strength. A weakness I brought with me is that I'd been a mime and a dancer. I didn't talk, and I wanted to do Shakespeare. I knew nothing about Shakespeare. I didn't know how to talk. I didn't know any of that stuff, so that was a weakness. Externally, there was a big turnover in the company, so there was opportunity, and I'll talk more about this in a second. I found out there were 5 auditors, 5 people on essentially the interviewing panel who were going to make the final decision. A weakness was I was eligible to join Actors Equity, which is the union. If I had done that, it would have cut my chances down almost zero as a new actor coming in. They generally saved those jobs for the leading man, leading lady person they wanted to hire, and preferred journeyman for the other stuff. And the other threat out there is that they usually get between 1,600 and 1,800 resumes of people who are interested in joining, out of which they're going to hire about 4 new men, 4 new women a year. So the odds of getting hired aren't that great. So this was my sort of analysis of where I was. So some of the stuff I could address. Didn't know anything about Shakespeare. I hired a coach to help me talk like I need to talk, help me do what I need to. So if you've got one, if you're in the tech world, you'll know much more than I do about what's going on that I need to know to stay current, and how am I going to do that? How am I going to address that? If you're in the accounting world, what new things do you need to know about accounting practices? If I was in that world, I would certainly be looking at what are the implications of the IRS, what's it's facing with the ruling about same-sex marriage. Because tens of thousands of people are now going to be redoing their taxes. It's a great opportunity if you're a CPA. If you don't have that expertise and you're a CPA, I'd be going, all right, that's a chance for me to do that. And then strengths, again, I needed to build out my list of what are some of the qualities I have as I'm doing more research about Shakespeare that I know I can fit into. One of the things is I have a big voice, so I knew I could work on an outdoor stage in the East Bay, whereas many actors just can't. They're screaming and shouting and they lose their voice. So doing this becomes a real